Welcome to History Happy Hour, a special series from History Uncovered. It's the end of September 2023, and we've handpicked a few of our favorite history stories from this month. Today, we'll be talking about
the investigation of an unknown tunnel beneath Poland's Saxon palace,
how a Bronze Age girl buried with 180 animal bones was uncovered in Kazakhstan,
the discovery of a 3,700-year-old Bronze Age remains in Turkey with preserved hair and skin,
how archaeologists found a 2,600-year-old child's shoe in an Austrian salt mine,
and how the Great Wall of China was damaged by construction workers who tried to create a shortcut,
as well as a number of historic anniversaries, including the Great Kanto Earthquake in Japan, the founding of Google, and much more. I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Kalina Fraga.
And I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Austin Harvey.
And welcome to History Happy Hour. Yeah, it feels like a good variety this month and like a little bit different.
Nothing too depressing this time around.
Nothing too depressing, and we don't have any metal detectors or vampires.
We almost had metal detectors.
That's true.
It was left on the cutting room floor. But
I think that's for the best, because that comes up every single month. It's always like he just bought a metal detector and then he found some amazing stuff with it.
Yeah, these people get so lucky. They're like day one.
Yeah.
They walked out of the store and turned it on just to make sure it would work. And the next thing you know, there's like a whole palace made of gold right below their feet.
Yeah. And they're like, I can't believe this happened.
And it's always the once in a lifetime discovery.
Amazing. I do love those stories. It makes me want to buy a metal detector. I think I've said that before, but we'll dig into our news stories. And the first one we have here is this tunnel that was discovered under the Saxon palace in Poland that no one knew about. Yeah,
very interesting.
The palace itself was built a long time ago, in the 17th century, but this tunnel is from the 20th century, from right before World War II. It seems that it was built by the Polish Army Command, and it's pretty big. It's 150 feet long, and seems like it was built in like 1933 because the bricks are stamped with that date, but they don't really know much about it other than it was used by the army for a bit. And then, of course...
Yeah. Well, and the palace itself was destroyed in 1944.
Yeah. So it's sort of like a bit of a mystery, but apparently it was used for a while and they were like shocked and excited to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it was just like in preparation of the impending war, because it seems like the tunnel was equipped with like a telegraph cable and like meant to kind of not be a shelter, but like definitely meant to be kept under wraps. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's no documents that they found like of this tunnel existing. So yeah, it seems like a well-kept secret that's only recently been.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating. It just went unnoticed for so long. I mean, I guess no one's really walking around the palace ruins often, but...
No, I think it's like pretty overgrown and they've only recently done these excavations. And that's like, oh, a tunnel. Must be very exciting. I guess there's not much more to say about that because they don't really know much more about the tunnel.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that this month, like covering new. I don't know, maybe not for you, but for me, there's been a lot of stuff where I've covered where it's just like, we don't know. We don't know what happened. The one I wrote today was crazy. It was because I was like, I'm writing this article about this guy who got mummified over the course of 16 days, which is insane on its own.
Oh, it's so fast.
And they don't know how he died. They don't know how he mummified so quickly. This comprehensive study that like analyzed him, they just concluded with, and we don't know what happened.
Where was he found?
In Bulgaria. Just by
in his house?
No, by some railway tracks.
Weird.
Yeah. They had one theory that like maybe the wind from the trains passing by like helped the mummification process. But then our editor, Matt, told me this is the second time that's happened in Bulgaria.
What? Like in the same area? How did Matt know that?
I guess just as he was doing like his, but
his due diligence.
Back in 2015, the crazy thing is it was 16 days again.
Yeah. Oh, weird.
Yeah. Like both times these guys mummified over the course of 16 days. It was in a different spot in Bulgaria, but like same person analyzed both bodies too. It's crazy.
Wow. Sounds like something's in the air in Bulgaria.
That's what I said. Yeah, it's nuts. It's so weird.
Weird. The next news story is there was a bit more information, although it's still a bit of a mystery. It's in Kazakhstan. They found the burial of this girl from Central Asia's Bronze Age. So that's between 3200 BCE and 1000 BCE. And the weird thing about the grave is that she was buried with 180 ankle bones from sheep or cattle.
Specifically ankle bones?
Yeah.
That's
it was
weird.
Ankle bones, also a couple of shoulder bones, and then some other like grave items. But they don't really know what the deal is with all those bones. It's an unusual find. And it could mean like, it could be like good luck, or like, well wishes onto like the next world or something, or a cult. They don't really know.
Yeah. There's a lot of that Bronze Age stuff that's just like speculative or unknown because there was no, like written record or anything. It was just. Yeah,
this stuff's been passed down. I mean, they have like they kind of have to guess about these things. Clearly she seemed like she was loved or venerated in some way to have all this in her grave. The other thing beside the bones was there was like a disc with a frog on it. And they don't really know what that means either, but they've never found something like that before. So it's a curious
yeah,
find.
like what? Like they carved the frog into it?
Like on like a bronze disc. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of frog symbolism ever.
No. There was some frog symbolism that the archaeologist mentioned. Let's see. They said the image of the frog has had different meanings among many people since antiquity. It's associated with the image of a woman in labor and the cult of water. But they don't really know what, in this case, the frog was supposed to mean.
Right. They just kind of threw that one out there, too. The cult of water.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, because frogs live in water.
I was like how casually it's mentioned. Oh, it had dealt with the cult of water. It's like, wait, can we expand on that a little bit? What is that? What is that?
Everyone knows about
Everyone
the cult
knows
of water.
The cult of water. They're up there with the Illuminati and the New World Order.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Very successful cult. Yeah, but that was a cool find and a mysterious one, for sure. And
not our only story about Bronze Age discoveries.
That's right.
Yeah, this next one, funnily enough, forgot I wrote it.
That happens.
It was cool. In Turkey, these archaeologists were doing excavations and came upon these two really weirdly well-preserved remains from two different people who lived in the Bronze Age, and they had bits of their skin and brains still.
Yeah, so weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly rare to find either of those things.
Mm-hmm. Especially this old.
Right. I mean, that we're talking like thousands, literally 3,700 years old. So
right. Well, and this is what reminded me. The mummy story kind of reminded me because they thought it was particular conditions that preserved their remains like this. Like something had happened to them. Their theory was that they'd been killed while fleeing like a fire. Yeah. And the fire had preserved them in this way.
Yeah, the heat just kind of like did something. Yeah. It was like there's like a whole process to it. But yeah, essentially just like the high heat created this chemical reaction that they think might have led to this. What I thought was really crazy about this, though, was that they've found remains of brains before, like 4 or 5 times. Not like a ton, but like this is the only time they've ever found skin, which I would have thought it would have been the other way around.
That's interesting. Because I know they found, I guess it depends on like where, because they, like those bog bodies have skin, don't they?
Yeah.
But like maybe outside of water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the bog bodies are like mummified too. So I think this might be notable because it was like basically just a skeleton, but like with some skin clinging to it still.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
It's so interesting too because like they think they were killed in this fire that was part of an assault on the whole city, but they don't know why the city was attacked. They're not sure.
This is another one of those Bronze Age mysteries. Like,
yeah,
there's no way to know. I mean, they literally burned down any evidence.
There's a lot of very like human focused stories today, which I guess the history ones usually are, but
I know sometimes we did talk about like that one sundial. Sometimes it is just like object
that's right.
based.
It's like objects,
coins, shipwrecks.
Yeah, it's a lot of coins. A lot of coin discoveries. I remember one time we were pitching articles and I pitched a coin article and he was like, for the love of God, like not another coin article because we like...
That was like right when I started.
We do like, often there's like hordes of coins found from like the Roman Empire, the Civil War or something. And I mean, it's always interesting to me, but...
Yeah, I remember when I first started, I thought you were like the coin girl.
Because I was like pitching coin articles. There are interesting stories. Why did someone hide them in a cave? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the stuff that's on the coins is often really interesting too. Because it's like, especially like you talk like Viking era or even older than that, it wasn't just like mass producing pennies. It was like they were more individually crafted.
Right.
And
yeah.
often had like symbolic imagery on them.
Yeah, I know. One of the most interesting ones we covered in the last year was about this coin they found in somewhere in Eastern Europe. It was a Roman emperor, but not one that anyone had like knew about.
Weird.
And it was a mystery. And they thought maybe it was this like general who had kind of like taken over his like military region. But it was all very, I don't know, one of those things like it could be this, it could be this other thing, and da 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 da. But I thought that was interesting. This is another cool find. This is in an Austrian salt mine from the Iron Age, and it's a child's shoe, 2,600 years old.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, sort of like the mummy you wrote about maybe and about the preserved skin and brain, is the shoe was preserved because of the salt. It kept the bacteria and stuff from coming in.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, all this time.
I had a really long conversation with my girlfriend's dad about salt and how it's such an interesting, like an important historical thing.
Huh.
Well, it actually stemmed from I was playing this video game, which was like a strategy game and very like a Game of Thrones-esque political machination stuff going on. And there's like 3 kingdoms, and one of the kingdoms, like their whole, like this one's in charge of all the iron and this one has something else. And then the third kingdom, their like big thing was they had salt. And I was like, who the hell would ever go to war over salt? And then I was like, actually, that makes a lot of sense, though. It stuck out as odd to me because it was in like, this like magical fantasy game where it could have been anything.
Yeah.
And they kept it very grounded and were like, no, it's salt. And I was like, why? I guess you would go to war over salt if someone had all of it, because that was how you kept like meat from going bad before refrigeration.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, the salt would be the thing, because this is a leather shoe, right?
Yeah.
So it's an organic material, and then you have this high amount of salt just keeping it around for years and years and years.
Yeah. No, it is fascinating. I went to it wasn't a salt mine. I'm not really sure what the phrase would be, but it was in France, and it was a salt farm. I don't know, but you would go and you could see, where the sea came in, and then they would like have all these, they would capture the salt and then kind of like,
oh, okay. So they weren't like
it.
digging for it. It was like
it's
fishing for salt.
Sea, and then there'd be like these piles of salt, because in like Normandy and Brittany, like their gray salt is like famous. So we went and saw one of their salt.
Oh, that's really cool.
The phrase is. Yeah. But anyway, this was different because it was a mine. And I guess the interesting thing about this story is that it gives an idea of what like the role children might have played in these salt mines, and whether or not they were like workers, which is a possibility, or kind of like just helping out, accompanying the adults or holding a torch or something. But clearly they were in the mines. Yeah.
I'm sure they were put to work in the mines. Kids can get down in tight tunnels that adults can't. I mean, I think we should put them back in the mines. Controversial take. I'm kidding.
There you go. A hot take here. Yeah, they have found skeletons from the era that show signs of like hard, repetitive work in like very young children. So it seems like probably they were used as workers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they were still doing that in America up until like late 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah,
and there have been like news stories lately about slaughterhouses, and like they found like children of migrants working. So there's lots of like under the table stuff going on still. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. Anyway, our last news story that we'll cover it's kind of like a one sentence story, I think, unless you have more to say about it. But
yeah, no, I mean, given that I wrote it, you're right. It could be a one sentence news story. So I was really struggling to make it hit my word count.
Yeah, I could tell you did a great job because you went up all like the detail of like the Great Wall. Well, say what the story is.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. 2 construction workers were arrested in China after they literally knocked down a portion of the Great Wall of China because they didn't want to go around it.
Yeah, want to make a shortcut.
Yeah, they want to make a shortcut through it. Obviously, it's China's like biggest cultural landmark, the Great Wall. Mm-hmm. The thing that I found really interesting about this story was if you look at the portion of the wall that they broke through, it's not at all what you'd imagine. When I read the headline at first, I imagined like, oh my God, they like what, like the Great Wall of China that's like stories tall and people walk.
Right.
And it's really not that. I mean, the Great Wall is like a bunch of different little segments, and some of them are very, very old and basically just nothing more than like a couple pieces of wood and dirt and holding it up. And this portion, it is wall. It's like a brick wall, but it really just kind of looks like 2 big mounds.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't recognize it from a distance. It's not what you typically think of when you think of the Great Wall of China.
Did they know that it was the Great Wall, part of the Great Wall? They must have.
They had to have. They had to have known. I mean, like, yeah. It's pretty distinct still.
Right. And it was like ancient, this wall, even though it's not as,
Yeah, this one...
I think you said the Ming...
It's the Ming Great Wall, yeah. So between the 14th and 17th century. So,
yeah. Ancient.
But yeah, apparently that's like the part of the wall that's sustained the most damage over the years. Beijing Times reported that only that 30% of the Ming Great Wall is just completely gone at this point.
Wow.
Apparently a bunch of farmers used to just like go and take bricks from the wall when they were building stuff on their farms. They would just, got this big wall over here. I guess I'll just take some of that for myself.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And it's only been a World Heritage Site since 1987. So it's, I mean, even into recent years, you could just break part of the Great Wall off in like 1986.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess like China wasn't as open until around that time. Nixon went there in the 70s. I guess as we move into our historic anniversaries, we'll stay in the realm of Asia for our first anniversary.
Yeah, traveling across the sea a little bit there, but the 100th anniversary on September 1st of the Great Kanto Earthquake, which I just wrote a whole post about.
Sounds pretty harrowing.
Yeah, there was this port city, Yokohama, on the Japanese coast that was essentially Japan's gateway to the West. It was where all of like the Western ideas were coming into Japan, where like the culture started to take on some of these more like liberal ideas from Western societies that like directly contrasted the more conservative, traditional Japanese culture of the time. And then this massive earthquake happens and it sends... Like, the earthquake itself was pretty devastating, but it was really the fallout of it. It was the tsunamis and things that ravaged Japan and killed, like, hundreds of thousands of people and basically leveled the city of Yokohama to the ground. And, yeah, the Japanese government at the time kind of used that as not an excuse. What's the word I'm looking for? They used it to, like, further their agenda. They basically said, like, this is our punishment for... changing our way of life, for acting like these Westerners. They kind of used it as like a way to like rally people and revert Japan to its more traditional, like post-feudal conservative structure. And I just think the like obviously it gets a little bit speculative here at the end, but like had that not happened 20 years later during World War II, Japan would have been a very different country than what it ultimately became.
So it sounds like it's a kind of a conservative turn after the earthquake.
Yeah. It was like, I imagine like you have this very conservative government, but you have these new liberal ideas that are coming in and people are starting to latch onto them. If you want to shut that down, well, then this massive calamity happens and you can use that as a way to be like, let's take control back now. Let's quote unquote fix this mess by reminding people of what our traditional values are. And
wow. Yeah, it just sounds like all the stats about the earthquake are just like horrifying that I read. Yeah,
it's like really bad. It wiped out a significant chunk of the population.
Yeah. I was like living in Seattle. That's always like that was like the fear. The worst thing is like the tsunami after the earthquake is like, it's just like.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting story for anyone listening to like dive into that. And just it was a very pivotal moment in modern Japanese history.
That was fascinating. Our next one is a little not as sad, I guess, although it's about a death.
Just one guy this time, though. It's fine.
It's September 2nd is the anniversary of J.R.R. Tolkien's death. And fun fact, we're recording today on September 22nd, which is the birthday of Bilbo and Frodo Baggins.
Is it really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
In the book, they say it's September 22nd. They share the same birthday. That was like part of their like bond is that they share a birthday.
I knew they shared a birthday. I just didn't know that it was September 22nd. I guess it's weird to me that he would just use regular months. Yeah,
he does. Like he pulls in kind of like funny things. But yeah, he died on September 2nd, 1973 at the age of 81. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. And a couple years ago, there was an exhibit of his work at the Morgan Library, and it was like the coolest thing in the world. It had like just like napkins and like books from his like young adulthood. He had like scribbled out ideas or illustrations, and like he was just consumed with this world, and the little artifacts he left behind were just so cool to see in person.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. That's really neat.
Yeah, so cool. So we can say happy birthday to Frodo and Bilbo. And then it's also the birthday, here's a segue, of Google this month.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
I was like, where are you going with that?
September 4th.
Yeah, September 4th, 1998, Google founded.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a time before Google and a time after Google, and here it is. Yeah, it was founded by 2 PhD students at Stanford. Apparently, its first iteration, it was called Backrub, which...
Oh? I hate that.
Yeah, I think Google's better.
That's terrible. Why? Why? Was that just like an alpha build? Like it was just like the development name for it? Or were they actually going to call it Backrub?
I think it was just an early idea.
Okay. Imagine going to backrub.com.
I know.
To look something up. Be like, yeah, just go backrub it.
It sounds like kind of like a, I don't know, there's something like weirdly like erotic about Backrub as a website.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah. Anyway, they went with Google in the end, and obviously that's like changed a lot for, I mean, like everything in terms of the internet.
It's literally how we're employed.
Yeah, right. Because people search for things and they find us.
Yeah.
Sitting on the Google page.
Wow.
Yeah. I guess the next thing is another death, and that's the death of Johnny Cash.
Yeah. 20 years ago.
71. September 12th.
How did he die?
Diabetes.
Ah, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
How did Tolkien die while we're at it?
He had a bleeding ulcer and a chest infection.
Ooh.
Yeah. You know, his grave has his name and his wife's name, and then like 2 elves' names from an elven love story.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
For a second, I thought you meant Johnny Cash, and I was like, that's weird.
Big Lord of the Rings fan, Tolkien. And I mean, I think that's really cool, but I kind of wonder what his wife thought about that. If she was like for this one thing, could we like not do elves?
Could we not do the elf thing just once?
Just once on our grave.
He said his like marriage vows all in Elvish, and she's like, that's great. I don't actually know what you said.
But I guess she was fine with it, although she died first. So I guess, I don't know, maybe he had the final say.
Yeah, she just had a regular tombstone at first. And then
he's
like, oh, well, hey, when I kick the bucket, add some Elvish stuff on there. She'll never know.
Are you a Johnny Cash fan at all?
I mean, yeah, passingly. I don't like actively seek out Johnny Cash, though I do love his cover.
9 Inch Nails.
9 Inch Nails hurt.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Johnny Cash is a legend, so.
Yeah. I was reading his obituary before we recorded, and I learned that he couldn't read music, so he would just compose things in his head and just play it again and again in his head until he could put it on tape, which is how the Beatles did it too. Like but I think Paul once was like, our songs are so catchy because we had to come up with a song that we could remember, and so keep it in your head until you can play it. So I thought it was kind of interesting that Johnny Cash was the same. On to the next. This was September 20th, 1973, was the Battle of the Sexes between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs playing tennis. Yeah, he was a self-proclaimed chauvinist who said that women were inferior and couldn't handle the pressure, and that even in his 50s he could beat any female player. And then King beat him pretty soundly. The funny thing I was reading about this, it was like this huge event, obviously, and watched by tens of millions of people. And when she appeared in a litter carried by men. And when he appeared in a rickshaw pulled by female models. So
interesting.
Yeah. It's our version of the Roman Empire's, Oh,
that's right. They made that into a movie.
Like recently.
Yeah, in 2017 with Emma Stone and Steve Carell.
Oh, it's not that recent, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Self-proclaimed chauvinist. That's a thing to be, I guess.
Well, it's pretty bold to be like, and I could beat, anyone. And then she won. I don't know much about tennis, but she won 3 games against him. Or sets, or I don't know. Yeah. Our final anniversary is kind of a cool one too, which is about someone stopping a nuclear catastrophe here.
Yeah.
It's this Russian guy,
Stanislav Petrov.
Yes, he was working with the Soviet air defense, and these alarms started going off on September 26th, which said that American missiles had been launched.
Right, which they had not.
They had not.
To be clear.
But he had to make a decision about what to do. And he said he thought it was probably a false alarm, but it was kind of like a 50-50 guess.
I mean, yeah, that's a scary moment. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, it could be a false alarm. Or
he said later, I had a funny feeling in my gut. I didn't want to make a mistake, obviously. I made a decision, and that was it. And then he said, when people start a war, they don't start it with only 5 missiles, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, obviously, that if he had reacted differently, that could have started something pretty bad.
I mean, yeah, if he had retaliated to this false alarm, then the United States would have retaliated to the very real bombs that were now flying through the air. So
yeah,
it's so funny. Like, people refer to him as the man who saved the world. What I find just so interesting about the story is, like, he did it by restraint. I think it's like a really like allegorical message to it almost. You know, I mean, like, this could almost be like a story from mythology if you switched out bombs for like God's wrath or something.
Well, even like with bombs, like that he approached it with patience and like right
the idea that like remaining level-headed and showing restraint can ultimately be the better option than, like, in this case, inaction was better than action. Right. There's probably a better lesson that somebody else could word better for it, but
I get it. Yeah.
You know, if you're going to pull a lesson away from it, I think that's really interesting and not something that's
a good lesson.
It's not a typical lesson. Usually, like, you would refer to somebody being a hero because they did something. In this case, him not doing something is one
inaction. Yeah. I mean, and it's remarkable because like things at the time were very tense between the U.S. and the USSR. So
yeah.
Even in spite of that, he was able to not be too reactive to this.
Right. He died a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I was just looking that up.
Yeah, he died kind of like, he's like a kind of an unknown figure for most of his life, even though he'd done this.
Yeah, he lived to be 77, so he had a good life. We'll end with the cocktail segment as like a little pick-me-up at the end here.
Yeah, I mean, the cocktail this time is not a history cocktail so much, but there are so many Lord of the Rings themed cocktails out there. Although Tolkien himself liked beer more than cocktails. Yeah. So that's fine. I get that.
Miravor.
This is a drink offered by the elves, which revitalizes whoever's drinking it. And this was on a website, you know.
It's out there.
It's out there. And this includes white tea, London dry gin, elderflower liqueur, which I think is a perfect thing for an elfish drink, honey syrup, and orange blossom water. That sounds very elfy to me.
Yeah, I might make that tonight.
The one that I would order if this was in a bar was Gandalf smoke rings.
This one also does sound very good.
Yeah, this one sounds really good.
A little more specific with stuff you have to get. So cognac, scotch, white tea syrup, spruce and birch bitters, a cinnamon stick, and pipe-blown smoke on top.
That's the cool part. Although I feel like you could make this even cooler by like lighting the cinnamon stick on fire, maybe somehow.
Absolutely, yeah.
Incorporating that.
Yeah, this is one I'm not going to be making at home. Because I don't even know where to get spruce and birch bitters.
Yeah, it's a lot of weird ingredients.
And I also don't have a pipe.
You could get one.
I could get a pipe. I won't, though.
All right. As I was researching, looking, there's like a lot of people have a lot of ideas for Lord of the Rings cocktails, but I found that there was this bar in Seattle called Bar Sabine that had, I think, like a month of Lord of the Rings themed cocktails.
Very cool.
And their Instagram was really fun because they had the cocktails and the recipes, and then one of the cocktails was like in a golem shaped glass, and it was just like cool looking.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
So this one was called The Last March of the Ents, which of course, as Lord of the Rings fans know, is when they march on Isengard. The Last March of the Ents has mezcal, sotol, which I don't know what that is.
Me neither.
Pumpkin vodka, which sounds weird.
Yeah.
Papaya, sumac, I don't know what that is either. Mastia, and firewater and lime. So a couple of, again, odd ingredients.
Firewater?
Firewater.
What is firewater?
I don't know.
There's a Firewater Kitchen in Deep Creek, Maryland. I don't think that's it.
Probably not.
I don't know. It just says high proof beverages, particularly illegal moonshine. Yeah, wow. I have no idea.
Get the bartender on the podcast. But anyway, those are some Lord of the Rings cocktail ideas people had. I think, I'd go for the Gandalf smoke rings one.
Yeah. If I were out and that were on a menu, that would absolutely be the one I would pick.
If I were out, yeah. Right, it does sound too complicated to make.
If I'm going to make any at home, though, it's going to be the Miravor. That's doable.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I guess I don't have orange blossoms.
Yeah. Well, you can improvise, I suppose.
That's true. Some of these cocktails, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of like with our friend JRR here where, beer's fine too. I could go have a beer. Beer's nice.
We have a brewery right down the street from us.
Oh, nice. That's dangerous, but nice.
It's called Necromancer. It's very cool. They have a queer beer club there. Shout out Necromancer Brewing in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Maybe they'll send you a free beer for a shout out. Maybe.
Do you think
I don't know.
That'd be cool.
Get them to sponsor the show.
I do love getting free samples from our sponsors.
I guess that kind of wraps things up for this month's History Happy Hour. We will not be doing one in October because we have so many ghosts and ghouls to cover that there's just no room. So that's fine. We'll return in November. Well,
next up, we're starting all of our spooky stuff. So we've got Sleepy Hollow and the
Mermaid Inn.
Haunted Mermaid Inn, and then the Enfield haunting.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. Ghosts and ghouls. And I think Kara's going to join us too for Sleepy Hollow.
For Sleepy Hollow, right. Yeah.
One of our editors. And yeah, it'll be a spooky month.
Yeah. And as always, you can check out any of these stories on allthat'sinteresting.com. We have stories related to pretty much everything we've talked about today. I mentioned the Great Kanto Earthquake one. All of the news stories are there. Mm-hmm. Definitely have talked about Tolkien and Johnny Cash and all of that fun stuff there. So yeah, check it out. You can always write us in here at podcast@allthat'sinteresting.com over email.
Say hello at 929-526-3029. And we'd love to hear from you there. And of course, you can also, did you mention the newsletter? You haven't yet.
I did not.
You can also join our newsletter at allthat'sinteresting.com/signup or become a member at allthat'interesting.com/membership. And yeah, always new stuff coming out. Everything's interesting, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting into the spooky season stuff, so that's always fun.
And it's spooky season coming up.
Spooky season. The leaves are already starting to change color around the house here.
Really?
I'm pumped about it.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, stick around the next couple of weeks for our ghost stories, and excited for that, as always.
Love spooky stories.
Yeah, good stuff coming.